Welcome back to Ask a Coroner, the podcast where we answer the questions people have always wanted to know about death investigations. I'm Mark Hammond, Boyd County Coroner.
And I'm Bailey Rucker, Deputy Coroner.
And tonight we're going to talk about, actually on death scenes, into personal property, evidence, what's the difference between those two, and why we take things and why we don't take things. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody's kind of curious about that, so it's a good subject we're going to hit on.
Yeah, we've hit on documentation, how a scene actually works, so I think really getting into the nitty-gritty of evidence collection and things. People see the lights and sirens, but they don't see the little things that we take into account for that really help us on an investigation a lot of times.
And that's exactly right. And sometimes we get into situations to where people are wondering, why are we taking this? Why are we taking a wallet? Why are we taking, leaving jewelry on? Why do we do all that at a death scene? And there's a lot of answers to that, and we're going to cover those as we move forward on this.
So we've kind of broke down the scenes a little bit, well, a lot of it, and kind of different scenes that we handle and everything. But what we haven't got into is maybe who actually controls the scene and how do we decide who's going to take what evidence and who's going to take this evidence and that kind of stuff. So when we're walking onto a death scene, who is actually in control of the entire thing?
I think it just mainly everybody is. As far as when I say everybody has a role. Mm-hmm. So what we try to do is come up to law enforcement first, because law enforcement's there to mainly make sure that the scene is secure and everything is preserved for us to take a look at. You also have fire department there. They're helping with patient care a lot of times. They stand by to help us move the body a lot of times. You also stand by with when you're looking at EMS. EMS is there to give us the story of what goes on. So really, we try to collaborate with everybody to find out, A, what's going on, B, where the investigation's going, and C, who do we need to talk to next? Mm-hmm. So we try to look at those three things, or I try to look at those three things when we get on scene. So I find whoever's handling on the law enforcement side and EMS, those are the two that usually we go up and talk to right away to find out what's going on, what exactly they know about the scene, and then from there, we can kind of get in our head, okay, what's going to happen? Who's going to take what? Mm-hmm. Are we going to take anything for that matter? So all those come out to play at that time.
And I think a huge role in it, too, is kind of delegating, but like in a responsible way. Like there's different agencies that are, like we've said before, are more capable of doing different things. So a death scene is technically our space, but we can say, hey, you do this, you know this better, I trust you with this.
And you know as well as I do that if even in a normal death scene, we're not going through pockets. We're not taking jewelry off. We're not doing all this stuff that in turn, when we leave the scene, everything goes with us to begin with. And the reason we do that mainly is just for documentation purposes and to make sure the right person gets the personal property back, things like that. There's so many times that we show up on a scene and the true next of kin is not there.
Yeah.
Well, we're not just going to hand things over to just anybody. We have, by law, a list that we go down, and we make sure that the true next of kin gets that personal property if it's personal property. If it's evidence, then we look and we decide with law enforcement usually who's taking what. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like phones. Phones are golden to us. But in turn, we truly, a lot of times will say, okay, well, if we can't get in the phone stays locked. That goes to law enforcement because they stand a better chance of getting in that phone than we do. Mm-hmm. They have the resources to get in that phone to where we don't have those. So all that starts playing a big role on how we're going to do that.
Mm-hmm. So kind of back to the whole TV debunking that we got to when we first started this. It's not just one person sitting there shouting orders and I'm going to take this and you guys do whatever. It's not one person that's the control center. Everybody is still working together.
Exactly, and that's the big myth. You know how the big myth goes.
Yeah.
The TV, in 30 minutes they're going to solve this, and everything's going to be done, and it's going to be one clue that person's going to find. And
It's the light bulb.
exactly, the light bulb goes on, and it's like we're done. And in truth, it's nothing like that. And I think we work very well with law enforcement a lot of times on what we're doing and what we're taking. A lot of people do not understand the difference between evidence and personal property. And both of those become a big difference when we look at things, because depending on what the scene is, it's just like the phone. Maybe that phone's in their pocket and that's why we took it. It's not the fact that it is evidence. And so if it's a natural death and somebody has a phone in their pocket, then we give the phone back to the next of kin and we move on. If it's an overdose or a homicide or anything like that we need that phone for, then yes, we're hanging on to the phone. So it's two totally different things a lot of times that people get mixed up with.
Yeah. And I think like another, outside of like a phone aspect, another thing of evidence versus personal property are like guns, weapons. Sometimes in a homicide, obviously, most of the time that's going to be evidence collection. But in some cases, that's still personal property just to secure it from that scene, so to say.
And that's true. And we look at a lot of different things when it comes to a weapon. If somebody has used a weapon for self-harm, we still want to take that weapon a lot of times and we want to check the weapon. We want to get it to the crime lab to make sure that weapon hasn't been modified. We want to make sure that it fires like it should. All those stuff that comes into play, that law enforcement may go ahead and take that to get that to get it to, say, the crime lab quicker than we do. And that's fine. We don't have a problem with that at all. We just want to know to make sure, hey, did it fire? Does it work like it should? Because we want to take away every aspect of why that happened before we say, okay, this is the cause and manner of death. So, and that, I think that plays a major role in things like that.
And this is where documentation also comes into play, a big part really, because especially in our office where we have evidence collection documentation and then we have personal property documentation. And personal property can be released, like you said, to next of kin, but we can't release evidence because it's a part of that investigation. So how does that documentation really have to be almost, well, perfect really to kind of declare those two?
Well, one of the first things we do at a scene is take pictures. And we take pictures of course, the scene itself. And then we also want to make sure that we get pictures of the body up close. And we work our way in, outward, inward. And then when we do that, one of the biggest things that we do, that we make sure that we do this with every single case. We take pictures of hands, wrists, we take pictures of necks. And everybody's like, why in the world would you do that? Well, what happens if somebody 2 days later says, Mom had on 3 necklaces and 2 rings? I'll give you a classic example. We worked a car wreck. It was a fatal wreck, and the family was not from around here. The mother was here. And the first thing they said was, Mom should have had rings on every finger. She doesn't leave the house without rings. And I'm sitting there going, okay, wait a minute. I don't remember seeing rings. So I went back and pulled pictures up, and the pictures showed no rings. And so I think she had a watch on, if I remember right, and maybe 1 ring, maybe. And so that was the first thing when I talked to the family again. It was like, are you sure? Yeah, she don't go anywhere without those. And I'm like, she didn't have anything on when she wrecked. And so once they got into town, they found the rings. She didn't put them on that day. And so, but without those pictures, it really doesn't tell the tale. The other thing is, I'll never write if you've, you got a nice ring on your hand right now, but
It always gets talked about.
your ring kind of sticks out. So in turn, I'm going to say that is a silver in color ring. I'm
Or
not
a
going
gray or
yeah,
yellow.
or gray or yellow. I'm not going to say that is a white gold with, it looks like a large diamond, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do any of that.
Can't add value to it.
Exactly. All I'm going to do is describe that ring as generic as I can possibly describe it, because I don't want to put myself in a hole. It could be worth thousands and thousands of dollars, but I don't know that. I don't have a clue of that. Same way with necklaces. When we look at a necklace, it would be gold in color, it'll be rose golden color, it will be silver in color, but it's not going to be, it's a silver necklace. So we really pay attention when we're documenting those. And we take those off usually one by one. People are real big now to have like bands around their wrists. It's the silicone bands of different types, and we've had those before. We don't cut those off. A lot of times we will go ahead and remove those, and we will document every one of those. Everything gets documented by pictures, and we try to document every single thing as a whole at first, and it may be one good big picture once we lay it out. And to give it some kind of substance, a lot of times we'll lay it out on a white sheet, or we'll lay it out on a brown table to where we can really get a good picture of it. And in case, same way with money. Money's a good example. With money, we're not just going to say that they have a lot of money or they don't have a lot of money. We're going to lay out how many $1 bills, how many $5 bills,
it's
how
like
many
an
tens.
itemized receipt of every single thing.
And then that becomes important. We actually have bags for just nothing but currency, and to where that bag, it goes in there, it's totally sealed, the case number goes on it. All that stuff has to be in there and play a major role in what we're doing when it comes to documentation, because that's all you have to prove what was there and what wasn't there.
Yeah. And it saves your butt a lot of times.
Oh yeah,
truly.
I mean, it's because there's been several times to where that's happened. Somebody said, well, Dad had $1,000 on him. Well, we counted it in front of 3 other people, and everybody counted the same. And this is how much money's there. This is a picture of it. This is what they have. Even down to the pennies. We'll lay change out and we'll say it's 5 quarters, 5 nickels, 5 whatever. And we'll make sure that that is documented to the T. And when we give that back, that's how much gets given back, and people have to sign for that.
So back to like deciphering from personal property versus evidence and on different scenes and things like that. Evidence doesn't maybe always tell you exactly what happens, but it helps paint a picture to the story that did happen. So what can be included as evidence?
Evidence, we're looking, of course, weapons. We're looking at any type of medications, but can become evidence. And the difference is, we as a coroner's office take any medication that is labeled with that person's name. We want that medication. Any prescription meds. Some offices do things different. Some offices don't take medicine at all. Some offices will just take narcotics. The reason we take those medicines is to see if they're compliant with those medicines a lot of times. And we've had that conversation in an earlier episode. We had that conversation. But in turn, if that person is found with a bunch of medication bottles and they're opened, then in turn, we want to, that's evidence now instead of personal property. If it's a natural death and there's no indications that it's a self-harm case or something like that, or a homicide even, then of course that goes in as just not really even personal property. We have a medication list. So we do medications, we do personal property, and we do evidence. So let's go back to the 2. Medications is one. Phones is another one. It could be evidence, i.e. overdose cases, homicide cases, self-harm case. We want that phone because we're going to look for messages. We're going to look for notes. We're going to look for things that could help prove this is why they did this. If it's a natural death, then it doesn't go in evidence. It'll come over into personal property. So the case will tell us a lot. After we talk to family, after we talk to eyewitnesses, who found the person, what they knew compared to what they didn't know, will tell us a lot just the same. We're also looking at clothing. all clothing, whatever's on that body, comes back to the coroner's office. Now, if we can save, say, boots or a belt or something like that, then we'll try our best to save that. But what we do and what the common practice is you cut every single thing off. You don't try to pull it off. You don't do anything like that. To us, it's biohazard, number one. Number two, we worry about getting stuck with things such as needles, sharp objects, things like that. So we cut pockets, we cut everything like that, and then it goes in a bio bag, and then in turn that's destroyed. A lot of families get upset over that because they do want every single piece of their loved one back as far as clothing goes and things, and we can't produce that a lot of times. The hospital can't produce that a lot of times. Now, do we save certain things? Yes. If there's nothing on a pair of shoes, then yes, we may save those shoes.
Yeah.
And those then became personal property. Same thing with, any of the jewelry, we save that. We save things down to lighters that we find. If we find a lighter in somebody's pocket, if we find cigarettes in somebody's pocket, that goes into personal property. We go through that and we may cut the cigarette pack to see if anything else is in there. So all that stuff is personal property compared to evidence. But the way we get to that is by doing interviews and talking to people and making sure that it's not needed for anything else.
Yeah. And I want to go back to a point that you said, because it also connected with, we don't search people's pockets and things on scenes, because it's a hazard for us. So when we get back to the office and we cut those pockets to see if there is anything in there and if there's needles, anything like that, that's like one of the parts where we have to be extremely delicate for ourselves to not get harmed in the process.
And you're exactly right. In our office, we have a set policy that basically we don't work in the morgue alone. We have somebody else in there with us when we're cutting clothes, cutting pockets. We found large amounts of drugs and cash in people's pockets, in their bras, in their socks, in their underwear. They hide things everywhere. And so if we go to try to pull that off, in turn, that's a more dangerous to us because we have had issues to where people have been stuck with needles, people that work for us. We wear frisk gloves. Frisk gloves basically have Kevlar in them. So that protects us if we're running our hand down a pocket or something like that. So basically what we will do is we'll just take a pair of scissors and we cut that pocket so we can see what's in there, and we're not just blindly sticking our hands somewhere and getting stuck with something that in turn can cause us harm.
And so also outside of like maybe criminal cases per se, different things can be of evidence too, like medical equipment. If we walk in and I don't even know, can't think of an example off the top of my head, but medical equipment can be used as evidence. Little things that you would not think we could take back and say, yeah, that we need to keep looking at this further.
And medical equipment's a big one because just like, say it's an infant death and they have an apnea monitor. We want that apnea monitor because it should have went off.
You can think of examples like that.
So it's like boom, and honestly, that's and when you said that, it brought back a case.
Yeah.
And it wasn't here, but that case happened to be in another part of the state to where twins died, and they were both on apnea monitors. And when they downloaded it, what it ended up happening, what they proved was the parents had smothered them to death. And you could watch that on the monitor go up and down their heart rates till they were dead. And so when you look at things like that, that becomes really important to us. Oxygen, a lot of times if we're looking at a fire scene and we had a fire scene one time and a lady was on oxygen, but she was also smoking. And one of the things was when we talked to the UL people, they wanted the concentrator because they wanted to test it to make sure that it was not faulty when it became and be a cause of her death. So of course that became evidence. And we held that till they came in and picked that up, and they took it and they tested it and did what they needed to do with it. So a lot of those, when it comes to medical equipment like that, it does become evidence. It's not personal property at all. It becomes an evidence thing to where we want to look at that, do a download on it, see what we can find out, things like that to help us solve that case.
So little things like that, all talking about all this evidence collection, everything, little things that could get looked over in so many people's minds really could change an entire case around.
And it does. And a classic example is that, or to remember that, I should say, is that a lot of times law enforcement may think something is totally natural. But when we get there and we look at it, it's like, okay, that's going to tell us the last time somebody took a breath. Let's look at modern technology. Modern technology today will say probably at least 50% of the houses we go into will have some type of camera system in there.
Yeah.
That could be a blink system. That could be cameras that run 24 hours a day. It could be all kinds of different things. Why wouldn't that all of a sudden now become part of the puzzle of trying to figure out when somebody was alive the last time? If they have like a blink camera and it goes up to the cloud, it's going to record every time that person walks by that camera. Well, if we start looking at that and the last time they walked by was yesterday at 10 a.m. and they haven't been back, boom, we've got a timeline now.
Yeah.
And timelines can run different from what we see. And a lot of things will change that timeline. But cameras, nanny cams, if a kid dies, that's one of the things that we want to start looking at real quick is, okay, is there any nanny cams? Is there any home cameras? Is there anything outside? As well as I do, if it's a homicide, one of the first things people start looking at is how many ring cameras is around here, so we can see maybe what vehicle left the scene, when a vehicle pulled in, what time they pulled in, all that, who was at the house. All that stuff suddenly becomes important. A classic example of that was a shooting I worked a long time ago, and it was a home invasion. And so we worked this shooting, and it's been years ago, but we were working the shooting, and one of the first things that nobody could make sense was this car was from Florida.
Yeah.
We were in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, I remember this.
Yeah, so it was in the middle of nowhere in this county, car at 2 a.m, Florida tags. The guy had never been here before. The guy that bought the house, he had only been in there 6 months. And he's got a dead guy laying in his kitchen that he had just shot multiple times. And we're sitting there going, okay, there's cameras. And everybody's going, okay, do we buy the story this guy's saying?
Yeah.
What's going on? There have to be more to the story. Luckily, this guy had a DVR, so it was constantly recording, and he had it in a separate part of a garage that had like a breezeway, and then you had a garage. Nobody could ever found that.
Yeah.
And he more than willingly gave that up. And he was like, yeah, I've got it all on tape.
Yeah,
and
please watch it.
Yeah, watch it. And so sure enough, we took it, and the police took it. We didn't take it, but the police took it. We went with them, plugged it in, and sure enough, the whole thing was right there. To this day, I couldn't tell you why that guy showed up at that house, how he got there, or anything else. He had no connections. And in turn, it showed everything that whatever that guy said was backed up by video.
Yeah.
If we didn't have video, he would have probably been raked over the coals because it made no sense. So video in turn became very much evidence for us to prove that this guy had all rights in the world to shoot this guy, and he was breaking in his home. Everything he said matched up.
Yeah.
And without that, it would have been hard to prove that. It would have been one word against somebody that's deceased there in the floor, and we're trying to figure it out. And so that saved a lot of time looking at video.
Yeah. And we've been able to do that a lot. It used to kind of be only like maybe a public death kind of thing where all public buildings would have cameras, outside cameras at least. But now it's the ring cameras that are helping solve a lot of cases.
Oh yeah, and a lot of people have like the blink cameras and there's all kinds of different brands that they have, even the pet cams.
Yeah.
We had a case to where, and it it was a case that somebody had a pet cam at home, and that was the only evidence we had of when that person was really last seen alive, was there on camera, and we knew the time. And then when they got home, that person was unconscious and in a medical emergency, wasn't breathing. They worked him into the hospital, and we took over there. But that helped us know a timeline. Okay, they were alive at this time, and now we got to figure out why. And so that helps us a whole lot, and that becomes all the evidence in the world. Evidence plays a major role, especially video, that if you look back 10 years ago, that wouldn't be happening. Like you said, it would be the public areas
A
or
McDonald's
something
camera
like
that
Yes.
caught something.
So now that's common nature.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a checklist when you go down through there.
Yeah, it is. And it really helps that law enforcement have sometimes people that will sit and watch hours and hours of films just to get the answer that you're looking for. And it may be literally a 0.5 second clip that's like, okay, that helps us.
And most of the time, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, and that helps out tremendously.
Yeah. So now maybe switching into a little bit of the personal property thing, but still going back to phones. When does a phone help you, and when is a phone just going to be maybe held as personal property?
If we think it's just a natural death, we may look at that phone just to see when the last time somebody made a phone call or last time somebody did a text message or something like that. But on a natural death that we know it's natural, there's nothing else that goes with it, then that becomes personal property, and somebody could have that back real quick. And a lot of times that happens because they have pictures they want on that phone to use in a funeral. That's the last thing that they really have that you can actually
Especially
get into.
now, a whole person's life is on one.
Yes,
so.
exactly. Now, on the other hand, it becomes evidence, and a lot of times that's handed over to whatever law enforcement agency we're working with. If we want to know other things, if we want to know, especially when we get into drug cases, it becomes huge because we want to know, were they using Snapchat? Were they using Facebook? Were they using just regular text messages to, in turn, be able to communicate? And we may, in turn, be able to get the buyer. We may be able to, in turn, know exactly how many people selling, what they took. That became a big thing. One time on a case that I had, the daughter actually, she was like, look in the phone because the phone will have whatever kind of fentanyl this person was buying. And sure enough, she was right on the money. And we were able to, in turn, then connect that and start connecting the dots to where they were able to make get an indictment, make an arrest, and do a prosecution on somebody like that.
Yeah, and that's more common now than ever probably, is actually being able to prosecute sellers on cases that we get that are overdoses and different things.
Every overdose, and we'll do a show probably on some overdose.
Yeah, because it's very, very intricate.
But one of the things with overdoses it's treated just like a crime scene because it is a crime scene. And everybody's like, well, it's their choice to buy the drugs. It's their choice to do this. It's their choice to do that. But it doesn't matter whose choice it was. Our job is to determine the cause and the manner of death. And then our job is also turn over the evidence and maybe get a prosecution, maybe not. One of the good things is that our Commonwealth's Attorney's Office here is great to work with when it comes to things like that, to where they want to prosecute things like that. They're big into that. And in turn, that helps our cases a lot of times. And it gives some people kind of some closure or some peace at that.
Yeah, that's what a lot of families will ask for it. Like, can you do anything to maybe bring us justice and get this person stopped? That because people blame him for it. They're like, he killed my dad.
Exactly.
Even though my dad bought the drugs and I know that, but he gave them to him.
Yes, and used to that wasn't nearly as big. It wasn't because it was a lot harder at that time. But even when people look and people think, okay, I've deleted, I've wiped everything I can possibly wipe. With a search warrant, you can still get back a whole lot of things to where that comes to us very important. Snapchat, everybody used Snap to to be able to sell drugs and things with because it, quote, disappeared. Well, it may have disappeared, but again, we can do a search warrant, and a lot of times they can pull things up. What's really neat is there's a FRED system here, what's called a FRED system, which is a forensic system that breaks passwords on phones, and we have access to that through a partnership with the local law enforcement. But if they can't get into it, and you can take it over on the West Virginia side a lot of times, and they can truly get in a phone quicker than anybody, I think. But Marshall University has great forensics as far as resources. It's a really big forensic school, and a lot of law enforcement will use that to help break a case a lot of times for us.
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people maybe don't see the importance of, like, oh, I want that phone. It has, you know, my brother's last pictures on it. I want that for memories and stuff. But we're also trying to help you in that aspect of bringing your family justice.
Yeah, and the difference is going to be that phone going back to somebody in a couple of days, or that phone not going back to somebody for months. A lot of times, if it's evidence, it could be months. If it's personal property, yes, it's going to be released within a day or so.
Yeah. And so another question that families ask the most probably is when they can get that stuff back. So like you just said, you know, it could be months, it could just be days, depending on if it's evidence or not. But it also depends on who it can be released to. A lot of people think, you know, that's my cousin, I want his stuff back, but we legally can't do that.
And you're exactly right. And probably that's where we take the most heat.
Yeah.
We
Unfortunately.
People really get upset with us when we tell them we can't release information, we can't release property, we can't release things to certain people. Mothers, and say the mother is here, and you have the wife here. The wife is who is in charge, and we hear all the time, "Well, I'm their mother. I'm their mother. I should be able to do." Well, technically, yes, you're the mother, but in reality, this is who is technically next of kin.
This is law.
And by law, this is who I have to talk to. This is who I have to release things to. And so there is times to where we will say, okay, I can't, and the mother or the wife will say, it's all right to release to so-and-so. If that's told to us, then that's documented very well. It's documented by the time, the date, and who told us that. And it has to be the next of kin. And people really get upset with us a lot of times when we will not release that to just anybody.
Yeah.
And so it has to be that person. In turn, we don't have a problem releasing things the very next day, and sometimes that day. We'll go ahead and release if it's truly the next of kin. But if it's not, we will hold that until we are told otherwise. And that's where we take a whole lot of heat a lot of times. People get really angry at us. But if we release that to just anybody in the family, I'll just say it, death a lot of times brings it the worst in families. And in turn, we get caught in the middle of that a lot of times. And it's like, sorry, but this is what we have to do.
Yeah.
If you want it, after they get done with it, you can talk to them about it. But everything goes to this person, and then it'll go on up the chain if somebody wants to release that to the other people.
Yeah. And a lot of what we deal with around here is that people are closer to their friends than they are their family. So friends say, well, he hasn't talked to them in years. And it's the same thing, you know, when people have been separated with their spouse for 10 plus years, but they never got a divorce. We still have to make every effort to get that. And we've mentioned this in plenty of episodes because it's such a big thing that's harped on. We have to attempt to make that contact.
Oh, yeah. And we get that all the time. People, they've been separated for 10 years. Well, this is my girlfriend. We've lived together. And that's the other thing. They've lived together but never got married.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. They've been together for 20 years, but they've never got married. They have no kids. Neither one of them have adult kids or anything like that. Guess what? It goes to the mother of the deceased or the father of the deceased. And this person gets mad because they've been with them for 20 years. And it's like, sorry, you can't make decisions. You can't do anything. This is exactly what we have to do. And it's hard for people to understand that a lot of times.
Yeah. So what are maybe some of the most questions you get asked by family in terms of, documentation, evidence, personal property? What things are families most worried about and most, I don't know, just kind of query about?
So one of the biggest things is, like you said, when can they get it back? Why they can't get it back is another thing. One of the biggest things is why they can't get clothes. That's a huge thing because they think that's probably the last thing that they've seen them in, or the last thing they really want to hold on to. And in reality, if it's been cut off, and a lot of times it's cut off at the hospital before we get there, if the person's worked into the hospital's going to do exactly what we do. They're going to cut every single thing off, and then it goes into a bio bag because at that time it is medical waste to us because of biofluids and different things like that occurs with that. But like if it's a pair of shoes or something like that, we'll hang on to those. As long as there's no blood or any type of body fluid or anything like that on those, yeah, we don't care at all to give those back, and we'll make efforts to do that. But people have to understand that a lot of things that happen in our world, we do to protect not only the families, but us too. And so that's why it's like that a lot of times.
That kind of made me think about also protection of evidence, like the preservation steps we have to take towards evidence, and not cutting through bullet holes if that is the case that we're working, or using paper bags versus plastic bags, different things like that.
And those become huge. It's like you want to make sure that the only plastic bags that we even have are for currency. Everything else is strictly paper because of the way that we have to preserve the evidence. And so we may, instead of, say if that person has 3 shirts on, all 3 shirts are not going to go in the same bag most of the time.
Yeah.
We will label, it's an outer shirt, it's a middle shirt, it's an inner shirt, it's a bra, it's pants. It's a lot of time we will get somebody who may have 3 pair of pants on. They may have sweatpants, then they have maybe a pair of jeans on, then they'll have panties on or underwear on. And we make sure that every bit of that is documented as we take it off in layers.
Yeah.
And I think that becomes really important when we are doing evidence. Following the evidence is going to solve a lot of our issues because that's where the truth's going to come out. So if we have that, then we have to make sure that it's documented correctly. The difference is in our property sheets. Our property sheets has a lot of lines on it. It has the case number, it has the person's name, it has the officer that is securing the evidence, it has the date and time that that's done. Then when we give that personal property back, then we mark off every single thing that we're giving back. We take a valid license or valid form of ID with a picture that has to match whoever we're giving that back to. That's also photocopied, and that goes into the case file. And then they have to sign that they have received all that property back. And I think that becomes important.
Yeah.
It wasn't, we had a case a week or so ago. The lady called, she called twice. And first thing was, where's his wallet? So what did I do? I pulled up the property sheet. He didn't have a wallet when we got him. He should have had a wallet. We've got a black watch, or a watch with a black wristband on it. We have a ring, and we have X number of dollars in money. That's all we have. And is what was in his pocket, and she was like, well, he should have had a wallet. Okay, he didn't. We got photographs. We know he didn't have a wallet on. He didn't have a wallet in his pockets. We don't know where the wallet is. So a lot of people scratch their heads when it comes to that. But they will call us first going, we want a certain thing back. It may be something small to us, but big to them. And it's like, we don't have that. So I think it's really important, the documentation to where if it's evidence, we also have a sheet. And that evidence will have everything listed out. It'll have the officer who secures that. Every single time somebody else touches that evidence, that we hand that evidence over, they have to sign and date the sheet and what time they did that. So if we take it to the crime lab, we're going to go, okay, here, sign this, and we keep that chain of evidence, because if that chain is broken by any means, it could throw our case way off
Yeah.
that we don't get anything.
Yeah.
So all that becomes important to us.
And so that ties everything back into how important documentation is. And we talked about it in earlier episodes, but specifically in this one, photos, papers, all of the above, how important that is to our office to truly tie a case together.
Oh, it is, because one little thing that we have off, or one thing that we didn't do, and we can't prove that, then our credibility is totally gone. And we never want that to happen. The only thing we have when it comes to the public is trust. And without that trust, we have nothing. So without the documentation and without the procedures that we follow, then it's hard to prove that. So in turn, when you lose that trust, you lose a lot with the public. And or with the family in general. You're going to deal with that family multiple times throughout your career.
Especially
working
in a smaller community like this, we see it all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you have a small community, people's going to know you by just, hey, you took care of my mom, you took care of my dad. And I don't want them saying, okay, they took care of my mom, but they stole something from my mom, or they did this or did that. That's when we have huge problems. If you go back right now and look, we've got cabinets for medications, we got cabinets for personal property, and we got cabinets for evidence. And when we look at all that, one of the biggest things that I was looking at the other day, and that what we have to fix in our offices, we have tons of personal property. And one of the things that we're going to start doing is we're calling every next of kin about their about personal property. Do you want it? Can it be destroyed? It could be something very small, but we've got that in property.
Yeah.
And if they want it back, then yes, we're going to release that to them. And a lot of times people just get caught up in the moment. They get caught up with having to take care of the funeral home, having to take care of death certificates, having to take care of banks, bills, all this stuff that goes with death. One of the things they totally forget is, I would have loved to have had that bracelet back, or I would have loved to have had this back or that back. And in turn, they just forget to come and get it. And hopefully we will be able to be successful in returning a lot of that personal property to the rightful owners of that now, and in turn clearing out our personal property to where because we take personal property every day, and we want to make sure that gets to where it needs to be.
And we've got personal property from years back. So what happens with the scene medication and evidence that sits there for a while like that?
So with our scene medications, we come back and we count that usually as transporter, and the deputy working the case will count everything out in or in medications. Then it's signed for. We hang on to that usually 2 to 3 months. Case gets closed, all that stuff. Then when it's time to destroy that, which it's all destroyed, we pull the sheets back off. Everything has a sheet of what's in there. It gets reallocated to make sure nobody's touched it. It's all stapled. It's all sealed. What happens then is we keep those sheets. They get scanned back in of destroyed on them. And then all those drugs get burned and they are destroyed. We have to do that literally every couple of months. And the reason we do that every couple of months is it's nothing to go in a house, which you've did, and we count thousands of pills for
get 3
hours.
Bags this big.
Yeah, because they get medications on a regular basis by month or every 3 months, and they may have just got and some of it's pretty elaborate. I mean, we've walked in houses before to where they've had a closet dedicated to nothing but medications and supplies. And it's like a lot of people are very thankful that we take that. Now, a lot of people get very angry that we take that, because that's something that they can take also, or something that they're going to use. So there's 2 different avenues to that, and we got to be very careful with that. But everything that we take, as far as medication wise, unless it's part of a case and comes evidence is destroyed after the case is closed.
So, how long does evidence typically stay? And do we keep it, or does it get transferred to maybe a different evidence locker at a police station after a while?
It can be both. So if it's actually going to be used in a case, what we try to do is work with the police and go ahead and give that up right off the bat. We won't even take it. And mainly just because of lack of storage. And they have better, I won't say a better evidence room, but they have more, a lot of time, room to store things. Because just like me and you've talked before, there's sometimes cases that go 4 and 5 years before it even goes to trial.
Yeah.
Now, once it's gone to trial and everything's said and done, and everything's signed off on, then yes, they can give that evidence back, or it goes back to the rightful owner a lot of times. So those are the things that a lot of times, if it's true evidence, we don't have to deal with, because that goes to the local law enforcement, and they're the ones that gives that back. And the good thing about that is we work very well with them.
Yeah.
So before, they may have took something as evidence, a weapon, and in turn, the case is closed on their part. They won't close that case till they have everything from us. So they won't close that case till they have a death certificate, till they have the toxicology, the autopsy report, our report. And then they'll even call and say, okay, is it okay to close the case? And the answer a lot of times is yes.
Yeah.
And then they'll go ahead and close the case and give that property back that we thought it may be important to us to begin with.
So that's another key takeaway would be that teamwork, it never ends. It starts like how we said earlier, there's no one person in control on a scene. Everybody's constantly working together, and even to close out a case months, sometimes years later, everybody is still working in a circle to make sure that everybody's in agreement, compliance, everything is set in stone.
And I think that's the best way to work. If you do not have that relationship, and it goes back to relationships, if you don't have the relationship with whoever you're working with, such as Kentucky State Police or Ashland Police Department, Boyd County Sheriff's Department for us, Catlettsburg Police Department for us, all those agencies we work with. And we're constantly, a lot of times, talking to those agencies because we don't want anything to slip through the cracks. And I think that becomes important, and it is a key takeaway, is everybody has to work together. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I've seen offices a lot of times that want to argue over evidence, and it's like, there's no use to argue. Give me a good picture of it. Let me get a good picture of it, and then it's done. You can take it, do whatever you want to with it. I just need to document. It's like when we talk about preserving the scene. We don't want the body moved if we can possibly help it. That body needs to stay exactly how they found it. It may get rolled over to where it's checked to make sure they are deceased or whatever. But besides that, we want to know exactly how that body was when the first person that saw that body, how was it laying? How was the clothes at that time? Because it does tell a big story. The body itself tells a story that we have to see that helps us determine their cause and manner of death. And a lot of people don't realize that, but just moving something little. Let's look at a car accident. Car accident, if you've got pieces strewn everywhere and somebody's coming to reconstruct that, one of the biggest things to do is never touch a piece of anything. Leave everything exactly where it's at. Don't kick something out of your way. Don't do any of that, because that becomes vital when it comes to reconstructing something.
One little bolt could change the entire measurement calculation, anything.
Exactly. And so that's why nothing's touched a lot of times. And it takes hours and upon hours sometimes to work those cases, but every bit of that is worth it, as long as the truth comes out and we do what we're supposed to do.
So what would be your main point you want listeners to take away from this episode?
The biggest thing is, number one, if your department does not have paperwork documenting things, if you don't have a form for, and I'm a form guru when
Yeah.
it comes. I like
He's
forms.
known for it.
You got to have forms, and in turn, when you look at that, if you don't have a form for personal property, get one.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have a form for evidence or chain of custody, get one, and use those and know the difference. I think a lot of coroners offices mix those up a little bit, and we do from time to time.
Yeah.
And I'll go back and I'll say, why is this an evidence when it should have been in personal property? And we will make sure that it gets where it needs to be. And one of the biggest things is, I think, with that, work with whatever agency you're working with. What law enforcement agency? Paramedics aren't going to have a dog in the fight. The fire department's not going to have a dog in the fight. But who takes that evidence? That's where you need to work and become one and collaborate and make sure that it happens the way it should happen. Because the other thing is, if you're an office, I highly recommend that you're taking pictures of hands, you're taking pictures of wrists.
And if you take a picture of one, take one of the other ones.
Yes, both of them.
Yeah.
And don't just take your camera and go right up close to it. You want those pictures back. You want to take pictures away from things. Because then you can differentiate left and right. You want to take pictures of ankles. You want to take pictures of anywhere to where jewelry's going to be. Make sure that you have a picture of that, because that's going to save you a lot of times lawsuits, problems with people wanting to report things missing, different things like that never should have happened. Just if you have the documentation, it's going to clear everything up. You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. I think that was a really good, informative episode, maybe really informative for some offices, to really kind of maybe hone in on some things or help each other out, kind of get that respect and rapport with different agencies, learning how to work together and everything. It was a really good, informative episode today.
And that's the thing, and I want families to understand, we don't destroy things just to be destroying them.
Yeah.
We have a reason behind all that. And it makes sense to us, but it doesn't make sense to a loved one at the time, especially they're hurting. It's their worst day of their life. And now we've destroyed something that they wanted, or we won't give back what they wanted. That's a big thing. Make sure they understand that, we're not doing this maliciously. We're doing this because it's our protocols, and we're doing it for safety reasons a lot of times. And I think that's a big thing to take away.
Yeah, absolutely. We thank you guys for listening. This is episode 9.
Episode 9, yeah.
Of Ask a Coroner. So we're moving on. We're getting them in and getting them out, but we really thank you guys for all your participation and your support and continued support, really. And keep getting the word out there. Keep following us on all of our social medias.
We'll see you next week.
Thank
Thanks.
you.